There's a question being asked of you right now. Not by a voice, not by logic, not by anything you can fully explain. It is being asked by something deeper. Something that has been quietly observing you your entire life. Noticing what you value, what you admire, what you believe success actually means. Before you answer that question with words, this test is going to let your instincts answer it first. In front of you are 4 women. Each one is seated. Each one carries herself differently. One leans forward. One holds herself back. One takes up space with ease. One seems to disappear into stillness. You're not being asked to judge beauty, clothing, or posture in any conventional sense. You are simply being asked one thing. Which woman looks the most successful to you? Do not analyze your answer. Do not ask yourself why. The moment you begin to justify your choice, you step away from the truth this test is designed to reveal. Just look. Notice which woman draws your attention without asking for it. Notice which silhouette feels, even in some quiet and wordless way, like success. Carl Jung believed that what we are drawn to always tells us something about ourselves, not about the object we are looking at, but about the inner architecture of our own minds. What we find compelling, powerful, admirable, or worthy is not random. It is a projection, a mirror, a window into the values that shape our choices, our relationships, our sense of what a life well lived actually looks like. This is why a test like this works. Not because the women in front of you hold secret information, but because your reaction to them does. You may feel drawn to one immediately. You may hesitate between 2. You may feel a small and unexplainable pull toward one that surprises you. All of these reactions carry meaning. Even resistance is meaningful. Sometimes the woman you most want to look away from is the one revealing something you are not yet ready to see. None of these choices is wrong. None reveals a flaw. Each one reflects a different and equally valid definition of success, one that has been shaped by your experiences, your wounds, your longings, and your deepest beliefs about what it means to truly make it in this world. So before we continue, take one more breath. Look at the 4 women again, and commit to the one that speaks to you, not the one you think you should choose, but the one you actually feel. Your answer is already inside you. Now, let us discover what it means. If you chose woman 1, the builder, she does not lean back. She does not wait. Even seated, there is something in her posture that suggests readiness, as if she is always one moment away from standing up and beginning again. This is the woman you chose, and that choice says something profound about the way you understand what success actually requires. To you, success is not inherited. It is not discovered by accident. It is not granted to those who simply have enough talent or enough luck. It is built, piece by piece, decision by decision, day after day in the absence of applause, in the silence before recognition arrives. You carry a deep respect for consistency, not the dramatic kind of effort that everyone sees, but the quiet, private, unglamorous kind. The kind that happens when no one is watching. The kind that does not require a witness to feel real. People who are drawn to this silhouette often grew up understanding early that the world does not hand things over easily. You may have watched someone work without praise. You may have been that person yourself. And somewhere in that experience, a belief was formed, a belief that permanence comes only from what is genuinely earned, and that anything built on less than real effort eventually reveals its weakness. This is your standard, not just for others, but for yourself. There is something Carl Jung described as the work ethic of the inner life, the idea that wholeness, like any worthwhile structure, must be built from the inside out, that we cannot borrow our identity, perform our values, or shortcut our way into a life that feels truly ours. We must construct it, slowly, honestly, with our own hands. You instinctively understand this. But here is the shadow side of the builder, and every archetype carries one. When effort becomes the only measure of worth, rest begins to feel like failure. When consistency is a highest virtue, the moments of stillness, softness, or uncertainty start to feel like signs that something is wrong. You may find it difficult to celebrate before a project feels finished. You may find it difficult to feel finished at all. Ask yourself this. Is there a version of success you're building toward that keeps moving further away the closer you get? And if so, what would it mean to sit down for a moment, look at what you have already constructed, and allow yourself to call it enough? The builder does not need to stop building, but the builder does need to occasionally recognize what has already been built. Your belief that success is created, not discovered, is not just an opinion. It is a form of respect. Respect for the process. Respect for the people who showed up when it was hard. Respect for your own capacity to endure. That is not a small thing. That is a foundation everything else stands on. If you chose woman 2, the balancer, she is composed, but not cold. There is ease in her stillness, and that ease is not passivity. It is a result of something much harder than it looks. The ability to carry responsibility without being crushed by it. The ability to remain herself even when the weight of everything else is pressing close. You chose her, and that tells us something important about the way you define what it means to succeed. For you, a full schedule is not the proof of a meaningful life. A title without peace is not impressive. An achievement that costs someone their health, their relationships, or their sense of self is not something you quietly admire, no matter how large it looks from the outside. You have an instinct for the hidden price of things, and that instinct is not cynicism. It is wisdom. What you genuinely respect is someone who has figured out how to hold ambition and humanity in the same hands without dropping either. Someone who knows when to push and when to step back. Someone who does not confuse busyness with purpose or exhaustion with dedication. In Jungian psychology, there is a concept known as the tension of opposites. The idea that the psyche is always being pulled between competing forces, and that the goal is not to eliminate that tension, but to hold it consciously, to keep both sides alive at once without collapsing into either one. This is what balance actually requires. Not the absence of difficulty, but the presence of awareness in the middle of it. You understand this better than most people realize. People who choose a silhouette often learned, sometimes painfully, that ignoring inner signals in pursuit of external achievement leads eventually to a kind of quiet collapse, a moment when the body or the spirit simply stops cooperating. And you either learn this firsthand, or you watched it happen to someone you care about, and you decided, consciously or not, that you did not want that to be your story. But here is what the balancer must watch carefully. The desire for equilibrium can sometimes become its own form of avoidance. There are moments when imbalance is necessary, when the right move is to throw yourself fully into something, even if it disrupts the carefully maintained harmony. When holding back is not wisdom, but fear dressed in the language of boundaries. Ask yourself, is the balance you protect a sign of genuine self-awareness? Or is there something you have been keeping yourself from reaching because the pursuit of it feels too destabilizing? Real balance does not mean everything is always smooth. It means you are honest enough to feel the pull in both directions and brave enough to keep choosing with intention anyway. You define success by how a person feels on the inside, not how they look from the outside. In a world obsessed with visible metrics, that is a revolutionary belief, and it takes more strength to hold than most people will ever know. If you chose woman 3, the trailblazer, she does not fit neatly into the frame. There is something about her posture, her presence, the very way she occupies space, that suggests she was not designed for someone else's mold. You felt drawn to her immediately, and that is not accidental. To you, the most powerful thing a person can do is refuse to perform a version of success that was written by someone else. You are drawn to originality not because it is fashionable, but because it is honest. Because somewhere inside you, you have always understood that a life shaped entirely by external approval is not really a life that belongs to the person living it. You see courage where others see risk. You see integrity where others see stubbornness. When someone builds a path that no one else has walked, when someone trusts their own inner direction more than they trust the consensus of the crowd, something in you recognizes that. Something in you calls it success. Carl Jung described a concept he called individuation, the lifelong process of becoming who you truly are beneath the layers of expectation, performance, and fear. He believed that the greatest human task is not to become like others, but to become more fully yourself. That the person most fully realized is not the one most widely admired, but the one most honestly expressed. This is what you instinctively value, and it is rarer than it sounds. People who choose the silhouette often carry their own quiet experience of having felt confined, of having followed a path that looked right from the outside, but felt hollow from the inside, of having reached a destination that everyone around them celebrated while they stood in the middle of it, wondering why it felt like nothing, and something shifted. A decision was made, consciously or unconsciously, that the next chapter would be different, that the measurement of success would come from within, not from the applause of others. But the trailblazer also carries a shadow, originality. When it becomes its own kind of performance, stops being freedom and starts being another cage. The need to be different can become as limiting as a need to fit in. The rejection of approval can quietly become its own way of seeking it. Ask yourself this. When you imagine living differently from expectations, are you moving towards something that is genuinely yours? Or are you sometimes moving away from something that frightens you? The trailblazer who walks their own path from a place of inner clarity is one of the most powerful forces in the world. But the path must come from somewhere real. It must come from inside, not just from the refusal of the outside. You believe that success begins the moment someone stops living for approval. Protect that belief. But make sure the life you are building in its place is one that actually feels like yours. If you chose woman 4, the quiet influencer, she does not demand attention. She does not lean forward or take up more space than she needs. And yet something about her is impossible to ignore. You saw it immediately. That quiet gravity. That sense of a person who knows exactly who she is without needing to announce it. This is the silhouette you chose. And it speaks directly to the part of you that is always known, perhaps before you had the language for it, that the loudest voice in the room is not always the most powerful one. For you, success is not measured in recognition. It is measured in impact, in the small and invisible changes a person leaves behind in the people they encounter, in the conversation that shifted someone's thinking, in the moment of genuine help that no one else witnessed, in the life that was quietly changed by a presence that never asked for credit. You believe, with something close to certainty, that the most meaningful influence is rarely the most visible kind. Carl Jung spoke often of what he called the transcendent function, the capacity within each person to move beyond what is immediately seen toward what is essentially true. The quiet influencer carries this capacity naturally. You are not interested in the surface of things. You are interested in what lasts. People who are drawn to the silhouette often possess a sensitivity to the world that goes unrecognized precisely because they do not call attention to it. You feel the effects of your actions on others before those effects become visible. You carry awareness of impact that most people only develop after the fact, if at all. And this awareness shapes everything about how you move through the world. It shapes how you speak, how you listen, how you decide when to act and when to wait, how you choose, again and again, to prioritize what is real over what is impressive. But the quiet influencer carries a shadow worth examining. The belief that recognition does not matter can sometimes become a way of protecting yourself from the risk of being truly seen. It is easier to work in the background when the background feels safe. When standing in the light would mean being judged. When the possibility of influence also carries the possibility of failure. Ask yourself this. Is your preference for quiet impact a genuine reflection of your values? Or is there something you have been capable of doing loudly, visibly, and boldly that you have not yet allowed yourself to claim? There is nothing wrong with influence that does not announce itself. But there is also nothing wrong with being seen. You believe the strongest people do not need to prove their value out loud. That is true, but there are moments when speaking up, stepping forward, and making your presence undeniable is not vanity. It is service. The world needs what you carry. And sometimes it needs to be able to see exactly where it's coming from, what your choice reveals about you. Now that all 4 women have shared their meanings, one essential truth remains. Your choice was not an assessment of 4 strangers. It was a reflection of your own inner definition of what a worthwhile life looks like. Every judgment we make about the people around us, every sense of who is admirable, who is powerful, who is someone we want to become, is shaped by the values we carry, often without knowing we carry them. The builder reveals a psyche that understands effort as the foundation of anything real. The balancer reveals a psyche that measures success by what is preserved as much as by what is achieved. The trailblazer reveals a psyche that cannot separate authentic success from authentic selfhood. The quiet influencer reveals a psyche that has learned to look past recognition towards something that lasts longer. None of these is superior. None of these is the right answer. They are four different languages for the same deep human longing: to live a life that actually means something, to become someone who mattered, to look back at the very end and feel that the time was not wasted. What changes is how each of us believes that meaning is made. And here is what Jung understood that perhaps we forget. The definition of success that drives us most powerfully is not always the one we have consciously chosen. Often it was absorbed from a parent who worked without rest, from a community that measured worth in visibility, from an early experience of being overlooked or being seen only when you performed. That absorbed definition may be serving you, or it may be quietly limiting you in ways you have not yet named. This is the invitation of a test like this, not to tell you who you are, but to open a moment of genuine reflection, to ask you to look at the way your mind assigns success to a silhouette, and to wonder with honest curiosity where that instinct came from and whether it is still true. Because the most powerful shift any person can make is a shift from unconsciously living someone else's definition of a meaningful life to consciously choosing their own. That shift does not happen all at once. It happens in small moments of awareness, moments exactly like this one. So carry your choice with you for a little while, not as a fixed identity, but as a question. Is the success I am building actually the success I want? Does the life I am moving toward belong to me? If the answer is yes, keep going. And if something in you hesitates, pay attention to that hesitation, because somewhere inside it lives a beginning of the life that actually fits. Share in the comments which woman you chose. And if something in the description surprised you or named something you had not yet found words for, let that be the beginning of a conversation, not just in the comments, but with yourself. Because self-knowledge is not a destination. It is a practice. And you have just taken one more step.